You are listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist and someone who is very mindful and aware of the decline in our collective mental health. I created this podcast so that we could have more direct and honest conversations about difficult topics and difficult issues. It's my goal to have honest but direct conversations that we need to have that are necessary. It's also my goal to give my listeners the information that they need in order to find their own mental health and mental wellness. This is where you will find the information that you need to be your own healer. And of course, all of this is based on years of clinical experience and expertise. Thank you for being here. Let's dive right in. I'm already having some second thoughts about this topic. But what the hell? Let's rip the band-aid off. Let's just go for it. Today's topic, we are going to discuss this very, very, very complicated, slippery, very misunderstood disorder known as borderline personality disorder. Actually, in past years, I did a lot of writing on the website Quora, Quora.com, Quora, regarding BPD, borderline personality disorder. I'm just going to refer to it as BPD. Point of clarification, when I say BPD, I'm not referring to bipolar disorder. There are people who get diagnosed with bipolar and they think that you're referring to bipolar when you say BPD. To me, BPD is always borderline personality disorder. Anyways, years ago, I was doing a lot of writing on Quora. It's a question answer website. So people will get on there and they'll ask questions, right? What is going on with this? What is going on with that when it comes to BPD or borderline personality disorder? And my content was actually quite successful in regards to borderline BPD. Um, it was met with both a lot of gratitude and people just expressing thank you for talking about this, thank you for bringing light to this, thank you for speaking the truth about this, and also a lot of hatred. But I mean, you can't do anything on the internet these days without getting hatred. Like you can't even like paint pictures of flowers without somebody like threatening to kill you these days. It's crazy out there. It's madness. And there was a while there on Quora where my content, the answers I would write regarding borderline BPD, was being sent out to millions and millions of people. My content regarding that disorder had gotten millions upon millions of views, endless, bottomless pit of comments. Some people saying thank you, I appreciate this, good job. Other people saying I hate you, you monster. And of course, there were a few times when individuals who claimed they had BPD would chime in, and just for one very special afternoon or evening, I became the worst person imaginable in their eyes. And really, at one point on that particular website, just right, all the analytics, I was the top writer on their entire website for that specific topic, and just in regards to getting views. So honestly, while a lot of clinicians have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to BPD, frankly, I believe that I do. Now, there's a story here. Let me tell the story. So it's like, well, how did you come to know so much about BPD? How did you come to understand it so well? There's a story here. When I went to graduate school, right, like they don't help you understand it. Most therapists don't understand borderline. I mean, worth a damn. It comes with a lot of controversy. Some therapists say that it's extremely rare, or that some therapists will say that it's a diagnosis that is used to label women to oppress them. Of course, the whole therapy world has been taken over by feminism. I'm not going to get into that. It's just how it is. Because yes, BPD is disproportionately, well, overwhelmingly more represented by women, whereas narcissistic personality disorder is overly represented by men. My theory, again, just a theory, chill out, it's just a theory. My theory is that borderline and narcissism are two sides of the same coin, just basically two subsets of the same personality disorder. Anyways, carrying on with the story here. I didn't learn anything about BPD from school. They don't help you understand it whatsoever. I didn't learn anything about it from supervisors. They didn't understand it either. They act like they understand it. They don't. My first job out of grad school was at a psych hospital. Borderline personality disorder is one of the diagnoses that you see in psych units. The most often, they tend to make suicide attempts. Extremely common for them. And some of the lower functioning ones, because there's like different levels of functioning when it comes to BPD, the lower functioning ones you would see often. They would come back quite frequently. They'd be there every 4 to 6 weeks or so. Well, and I'm thinking of one young, um, one young lady who had BPD, and she was there often. Very chaotic young lady. My heart went out to her because how much trouble she was experiencing. But it turns out that one of the staff had a little bit of a thing for her. It's like the end of the day one day, right? I'm in the hospital. I'm going into my office to grab my shit so I can go home for the day. And this employee who's just like a staff on the floor, he like slips in. He's like, "Yeah, so and so's back, huh?" Because she had gotten back that day. Like he's kind of doing that thing with his eyebrows. She's back. And then I was like, "Oh shit, oh brother, here we go." Yeah, so I had a little conversation with my director. We kind of had to make sure that situation wasn't going to be a problem. Anyways, at the time, I didn't know a damn thing about borderline. Couldn't have told you anything about it. Fast forward several years, I just had a curiosity about it. I didn't understand it. I don't like it when I don't understand certain aspects of behavior or psychology issues. It bugs me. Like I almost too obsessively like work to understand things. I had this friend at the time who had a radio show on this crappy little AM radio station that nobody listened to. He had me on it a few times, and we'd be talking about things like parental alienation or borderline personality disorder, and people would call in drunk and talk about UFO sightings. It was like, we're not talking about that, or they'd be like, thanks, Obama, and crappy AM station. Anyway, so one day my friend on his Facebook, because he's got a radio show, he's like, "Today my guest is so and so. She's recovered borderline personality disorder." So I perked up and listened to the show and listened to, I think it was 2 hours long, and his guest. I'll just call her. Let's see, what should I call her? I think I'll just call her, I don't know, Emma. Anyways, so Emma, this recovered BPD, I listened to the whole episode. She was very interesting to listen to. She had a ton of insights about the disorder. I actually learned a lot by just listening to her about when she was talking about it. So I reached out to my friend, right? And I'm like, um, can I meet this friend? I want to talk to her. I want to meet her. I want, like, because a recovered case of BPD up until that point in my career was like unheard of. It didn't exist. And I was skeptical at first, but I wanted to meet her and I wanted to talk to her. And he was like, "Yeah, she's really nice, super cool. Just look her up on Facebook, send her a message, tell her I sent you. She's super cool. I'm sure she'll be down to it." And she was. She was really open to it. She was very, very, very open to it. I told her who I was. I told her I was a therapist. I told her I was hoping to pick her brain and ask her some questions about it. Long story short, we ended up having hours and hours of conversations, whether in person or over the phone, about BPD borderline. I would call her, I would text her when I had questions. I was just like, "Well, I don't understand this and I don't understand that." Her way of explaining things was really cryptic and very abstract as well. So it took me a while to kind of catch on and understand to whatever it was that she was saying or telling me about it. Very much to her credit, she patiently, and I mean super, super patiently, did her best to answer all of my questions and explain things. And then after a while, I realized too, like every topic is on the table here. We can talk about anything openly without worrying that she's going to get upset. Because if you know anything about BPD, you know that they're notoriously volatile. If something triggers them, they can just, I mean, they can go from 0 to 100 like that quick. Like, boom, they can absolutely explode. If something triggers them, and each individual has their own set of triggers, right? And so, I mean, this is why I would get such adverse responses online. It's like, for some people, it really resonated, and other people, it would push the button, the trigger would be pulled, and they go into that defensive mode where they're just like, "You are the worst human being I've ever met. I want to kill you. I want you to die. Blah blah blah." And so, actually, as the story goes, like I would talk to Emma pretty frequently, several times a week. We would get together every couple of weeks. I just wanted to pick her brain. I was just like, the more that she told me about borderline, the more I wanted to know. The more I realized I was way more confused about it than I thought. I realized what I thought I knew about it was totally false, totally wrong. Emma would patiently, very politely correct me. No, that's not right. That is incorrect. That's wrong. Blah, blah, blah. And I can probably say, in full and complete honesty, I might be one of the only or one of the few therapists out there who's actually taken the time to talk to somebody who has recovered from this disorder, or as I call it, has reintegrated. And I'll get into that here in a little bit. I might be one of the very few therapists out there who's actually taken the time to sit down and talk to one of these people and get them to help me understand it. Because again, I didn't understand it. It just, and even as I was taught, we were having these discussions with Emma. It's just asking her and picking her brain like crazy. It's still just for weeks and weeks and weeks. It still escaped me. It didn't click. Then finally one day, it just kind of did. Like suddenly my brain shifted and I saw it for what it was. I felt like I really understood it. And then when I would just explain it to her, she was like, "Yep, you got it. Exactly. You got it. Yep, you're understanding it now. You're understanding it now. You're understanding it now. Yep, you got it." And I swear to God, if I wanted to, I could easily specialize in borderline personality disorder. I could specialize in that. I frankly don't want to. No offense to anyone out there with BPD. I know it's difficult. I know it's a struggle. I know it's very hard to live with. It is a very, very, very challenging disorder to treat. That's a whole other topic. Treating BPD. I'll cover that briefly before we get through this. Talk about diagnosing. We'll talk about treatment before this ends. But here I was with this newfound knowledge, and I found myself on Quora answering questions, writing about borderline, and again, the content did extremely well for quite some time. I've gotten revenue from the website for the content that I've written. It's something that I still kind of want to do, is do some writing on Quora. I'm just spreading myself really thin these days, and it's very low on the priority ladder for me. After everything that I learned from Emma, I even almost feel like I could even write a book on the disorder. I can't imagine it would land very well, but it already stirs up a heap load of controversy inside the clinical world. That's the type of topic, and that's the type of area where I think it would be low payoff, frankly, and frankly with a lot of negative consequences interacting with people who did not like having their status quo challenged. Again, I feel like I could, specialize in that in BPD if I wanted to. I just really super don't want to. Again, if you've ever personally known somebody that has BPD, especially low functioning type, you know how difficult and problematic they can be. Man, I can tell story after story after story about BPD patients, BPD clients, things that just real like I've had a few interactions with BPD clients, patients, whatever, that left me so troubled that I was like, no, I need to back out here. This is yeah, a very very difficult thing to work with here. Frankly, a big thing that turned me away from working with BPD clients is when I realized that their feelings are facts. If they feel like you harmed them or assaulted them in some way, they're gonna tell everybody. They're gonna like bogus complaints. I and even what a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was doing an online continuing education, and there was a male therapist on there telling a cautionary tale. He's talking about how he had a BPD client and he'd been seeing her for 18 or so months. And he said one night she came in, she was the last appointment of the day, and she told him that she loved him and she wanted to pursue a relationship with him. Now, he went on, of course, to describe that as a therapist, he cannot legally do so. That is very against the rules. That is exactly how you lose your licensed practice. So he did his best, as he described. He told the story. And this guy had like 1,000 yard stare. I mean, you could tell that this dude had been through it, like absolutely been through it. Like, like I'm good at reading behavior. I'm good at reading body language. And I was looking at this dude and I'm like, this dude has been really fucked over. So what happened, according to him, was he did his best to let her down gently. And he said, I'm super flattered. I'm sorry, I can't pursue a relationship with you. It's very against the rules. I'll lose my license, blah, 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 right? And ended the session. And she proceeded to go to the police and make a false accusation claiming that he raped her in a session. And basically, he spent the next year plus 14 or so months, I think he said, if I remember correctly. After that, spent that much amount of time, and I think he said well over 150K, not only trying to retain his license and his career, but stay out of prison. One of the things I've learned about BPD, they don't do well with what they perceive as betrayal. Their betrayal threshold is extremely low for the most part, especially low functioning BPD. Their threshold for betrayal is like extremely low. If they believe that you have betrayed them, watch out. They may go to great lengths to absolutely burn your life down. And while that is the worst story I've ever heard a therapist tell about a BPD client, it's definitely not the only one I've heard. Oh man, I've heard horror stories. Therapists telling stories about what happened with BPD clients. It's not good. If they feel like you have betrayed them in some way, they will really go. They will go on a war path sometimes. So as a rule, it is extremely difficult for people with BPD to get help, to get effective treatment. Um, Not only is it a very, very difficult disorder to help, to treat, or to work with, um, but the number of clinicians who are willing to work with that population are limited. Frankly, a lot of BPD individuals end up with young, inexperienced therapists who don't understand the disorder, haven't had any experience with it. The really seasoned clinicians that have had experiences and had bad experiences trying to treat this disorder and help these individuals are usually pretty cautious, kind of standoffish, reluctant to treat it, myself included. That includes me. The aforementioned male therapist who was falsely accused, he stated that he managed to retain his license and stay out of prison, but now he had a rule that any time that he worked with female clients, He would video record every single session that they consented to and signed the consent form before even starting treatment. I don't blame the guy. And if I had BPD clients who said I have BPD and I'm seeking treatment, I would I would record. I would gain consent to record the sessions just like he did. But let's shift gears. Let's kind of get into the nitty gritty of diagnosing and treating here. Okay, so first, what is actually going on with this disorder? Why do people have this? To me, it is not a genetic. It's not genetic. So everything that I'm going to say from here on out, okay, this is according to me. This is my opinion. Okay, if you disagree, you're allowed to disagree. This is just my opinion. So again, you have to provide disclaimers. You got to front load it when it comes to BPD because people are so reactive to it. You say one little thing they don't like, and man, they can explode. So disclaimer: this is my opinion. No, it is not genetic. It's learned. It's a learned behavior. It's a learned set of behaviors. Yes, it is a trauma based. Again, all this is my opinion. Yes, it is a stems from trauma. For those people who have listened to a lot of my content or followed me, they know that my general belief and theory about mental illness is the shattered minds theory, that basically our psyche, our minds become fragmented due to trauma. It's usually because of the impacts of trauma that our psyche becomes fragmented and broken into parts. And when those parts or fragments are no longer like integrated at all, they don't talk to each other, and they sort of take over, so to speak. To me, that's what a personality disorder is. It's when you have different parts that are just sort of phasing in and out with a person. So they don't have any real sense of identity, a real sense of self. They experience the DSM calls an identity disturbance, very accurate. But they also experience crippling feelings of emptiness that usually manifests in their behavior and in regards to their relationship styles. One of the easiest ways to spot it is the idealization versus devaluation, where you're my new favorite person and you're the greatest ever and you're exactly perfect and you're a wonderful, amazing human being. I call it heroes and villains. In their eyes, you go from being their favorite person and you're perfect and you're wonderful in every single way and you're the hero in their life, and then you do something they don't like and you're the worst ever and I hate you and you hurt me and I can't believe you did this to me and you've betrayed me. So this is what we call idealization or devaluation according to the DSM. But again, I call it heroes and villains dynamic. Some people want to change the name of the disorder to like a trauma related disorder. Right now, there's a lot of buzz of people saying, including psychologists, I don't agree with this, but whatever, who want to call it CPTSD or complex PTSD, where you just have complications due to severe trauma, which I think is a fairly accurate, right, representation of what's happening with them, but I don't think it's an accurate terminology. Like it doesn't describe, like, I think the term personality disorder needs to remain because that's describing a certain pattern or cycle of behaviors that's present. People with BPD are often misdiagnosed as either CPTSD, which is actually not official diagnosis, at least not yet, and probably will be in the future, or they're misdiagnosed as having bipolar disorder because of the drastic shifts. I think people don't understand bipolar disorder as well as they think they do. They think because they see this drastic shift in persona that it's like, well, one minute you're calm and stable, the next minute you're screaming at people as a sign of bipolar disorder. That's not really what bipolar disorder is. And I think bipolar and CPTSD, complex PTSD, has been used as replacement diagnoses because there are just a lot of clinicians out there who don't want to diagnose BPD. They don't. So in terms of treatment, it's a very hard disorder to treat. I actually don't think it has to be as hard to treat as it is, but because the industry tends to enable this disorder, I think it's made it much harder to treat. For example, I've heard many therapists tell the husbands of BPD women, like, figure out what her triggers are and avoid them. Don't trigger her. And I'm like, that's terrible advice. It's terrible advice. It's horrible advice. No, it's not the job. It's not the job of the world and everybody around them to manage their triggers, to learn their triggers and tiptoe around them. That is a bad solution. That's terrible advice. The industry leader for treating BPD is called dialectical behavioral therapy. It was developed by a psychologist named Marcia Linehan. She developed this a long time ago. It's actually pretty old. It's speculated that she once had BPD, but she recovered from it, and that she created DBT as a way to specifically treat BPD. So, DBT is the industry leader. You keep it up with the acronyms, folks. DBT is the industry leader for treating borderline personality disorder. Frankly, I think it's terrible. I think it sucks. It's not effective. It doesn't work. The recovery rate using DBT is extremely low. I think DBT is great for other things like teenagers. Teenagers do really well with DBT. It's very structured, it's very concrete, it makes sense to kids, it gives them these usable skills. And teenagers seem to do really well with DBT. Borderline, not so much, but it's the industry leader and it has been forever. I think so, again, since like the 80s, it's the industry leader, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The aforementioned Emma, she agreed with me. She agreed with me. She's like, yeah, she's like, there's some things that might be helpful, but they don't connect to it. They don't. It doesn't resonate with them. They have a hard time connecting with it. It just doesn't. It doesn't jive with them. Personally, I believe that BPD needs internal family systems or IFS because IFS specifically is a therapy model that deals with different parts. Now, if the borderline individual is highly fragmented, right? And they have all these different working parts that are working against each other. I personally think IFS or internal family systems is going to be a much better option for them. I've even done some writing about this, and I've had several individuals chime in, whether it's YouTube videos or on Quora, and say, yes, I agree. I was diagnosed borderline, and IFS has helped me immensely. I've seen people with BPD who they often end up in going to EMDR. Don't get me started on EMDR. Oh Lord, I am like such a contrarian. If you're new to my content, like I'm a therapist that does not toe the line. Like I think industry standards that we have these days are garbage. Everyone that comes with controversy, I end up agreeing with in this field. But anyways, because BPD is a trauma based disorder, they often end up doing EMDR, and EMDR doesn't work with borderline like at all. Like it's even more useless in helping borderline than DBT is, which is saying a lot. And I've encountered individuals who have been going to who have a personality disorder, who have borderline, and have been going to EMDR twice a week for like a year and a half and haven't seen any improvements whatsoever. In fact, in some cases, they're even deteriorating. Me personally, I think EMDR is horribly overrated, way overused. EMDR has a much better reputation than it deserves. And many people with borderline personality disorder, they're really seeking relief. They just want help. They just want to feel better. They just want to do better. And they usually end up doing EMDR because they have a lot of trauma, and the EMDR can even make it worse from what I've seen. So, this is what I would suggest. Again, purely just a suggestion. I believe people with borderline personality disorder need internal family systems. I think they need someone who's really good at internal family systems. But I also think that one of the things that they really need, one of the things that's really going to help them, they hate it. They hate it, but I really believe that one of the things that it helps them reintegrate, right, their personality is to take full responsibility, accountability, full ownership, right? And instead of blaming other people for their emotions, blaming other people for their behavior, and avoiding taking any responsibility for their life, right? They're always looking for someone, or especially someone, but something, someone to save them, to help them, to rescue them. They need to understand that they are their own solution. They're the only ones who can save them. Nobody else, like a good therapist, may be able to help them, but if they are not actively engaged in helping themselves, it's just not going to happen. They don't like hearing that. It pisses them off. How dare you, right? I'm just telling you the truth, right? They want to believe that their savior, their hero, their solution is going to come in the form of like moving to the right place or maybe becoming a photographer. The wildest one I heard was she was saying that she wanted to be in the Iditarod, and it just sounded so lovely and peaceful, and it would bring her peace. If you don't know what the Iditarod is, it's just super crazy intense dog sled race in the freezing tundra of Alaska. People get frostbite, they die. It's very dangerous. But she had it in her mind that being in the Iditarod was just gonna was just gonna fix her. But they always get into their minds that someone or something is going to fix them. The only thing that can save them or fix them is themselves. So they need to take full ownership. Again, they hate that. It's painful for them. It's very difficult for them. They fight it tooth and nail. I've worked with clients where I work with them on this, and when they do so, they see better results, and they recognize that they're getting better results, and they're glad that they're getting better results. But it's like their minds, their disorder tells them someone, something needs to save you, needs to rescue you, be your savior, be your solution. Nobody can fix them but them. That's the truth. And as long as they're looking for someone or something to swoop in, as long as they're waiting for their fairy godmother to show up and just magically wave their magic wand and fix things and fix them, it's just not going to happen. I've encountered many individuals online who have made a ton of progress on their BPD, and they 100, I've talked to them, they have 100% agreed with me. And they say, yes, it was only when I took full ownership of my experience and my disorder that I got any better. But that kind of speaks to another problem, and that is that people with BPD, they tend to have enablers around them, whether it's their boyfriends, their husbands, their spouse, parents, siblings, friends even can really enable them, and they tend to keep them stuck. So, I mean, that is like a just very, very quick crash course on borderline personality disorder. I mean, honestly, like, I could write a book on this. I'm not going to. I don't want to. It doesn't sound enjoyable to me. So, anyways, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go watch some NBA playoffs and do some weightlifting while I watch the NBA playoffs. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to follow. Go check out my website. Hope this was helpful to you. Remember, my friends, you must do hard things. See you next time.